Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this lunchtime press event on leading transformative action, further, faster, together. My name is Libby Ferguson. I'm Director of Policy at the Climate Group, and it's an absolute privilege to be moderating this event today. At the Climate Group, we work with businesses and state and regional governments to drive climate action fast. And that is why it's such a pleasure for us to be involved in this initiative with our partners from the US Climate Alliance, from C40 Cities, and from the state of Washington that took the initiative to create this. The Climate Group is secretariat to the Under 2 Coalition. We've just had the first session of our General Assembly downstairs with states, over 50 states and regions from all over the world. And we now make up over 250 governments, over half of the global GDP, and we represent over 2 billion people. So it's really a force to be reckoned with. And state and regional governments, the story this morning has all been about implementation and action. States and regions can pass laws, they create better, more sustainable conditions for business, and they influence behaviour change. And they're also ahead of the curve in setting net zero targets. So today's announcement is really a welcome reminder that on the path to net zero, we really need to be focused on the 2030 timeframe and on action and delivery now. We've got a really phenomenal lineup of speakers today. We're going to be taking you on a whirlwind tour of the globe to witness all the action that's taking place at this level of government. And to kick off our whirlwind tour, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce the instigator of this initiative, an individual who's been working tirelessly. I remember you when we met in 2015, Governor Inslee, and you were really kind of driving the climate action agenda, not only in the US, but also globally. So please give a very warm welcome to Governor Jay Inslee, the Governor of Washington.
Well, thank you so much. I rarely have been introduced as an instigator with such class, so thank you very much. I am proud to be an instigator of this effort. And this effort is born by a central recognition, and that is the recognition that in Glasgow we're having the parties are meeting. Well, we are parties, and some in the United Nations organization have referred to our states and to our cities as subnationals. That's just wrong. We are supranationals. And today I am proud to join 68 other supranationals in announcing that we are going to be the cutting edge, the leading edge of this efforts against climate change. And we are going to set the standard for actions, including near-term actions for the rest of the world to be inspired by. And so I am glad to join you in this announcement. Now, let me just say why I believe we're supranationals. It is clear we're supranationals because we can go faster than national governors or national governments. We can go farther than national governments, and we can go with more flexibility than national governments. That is why when you see the commitments that we are making today of these 68 organizations, that indeed we're going to achieve those goals. So the national commitments that come out of COP will not be the ceiling for us, they will be the floor. And we will exceed them, because we know exceeding them is both necessary and practical and economically productive. Because the people in the 68 coalition, and let's call ourselves the Supranational Action Coalition, recognize that action grows our economies. Because we're seeing it doing that with the development of new technologically oriented industries every day. And let's just talk about for a moment why this is a significant event. This is not just a couple of villages with a good idea. The 68 organizations that we join here today represent 470 million people. We represent the third, if it was a country, if we united as our own country. I'm not suggesting that today, it'd be a little too a little too risque. But we would be the third largest country in the world today if we were together. We would represent 20% of the entire world's GDP. Our metric emissions at 3.7 billion would represent the total emissions of the European Union. This is a big deal, both by scope, by ambition, and by commitment. And so I'm proud to join folks in making these commitments. Now, the commitments we are making, and there's a variety of them today, from electric vehicles to decarbonization of our electrical standard to efficiency in buildings, but they all have a central tenet. We're not just talking a good game, we're taking action. And we're not making simple commitments for the long term in the third generation. We're doing it right now. We're doing things on the ground today in our home communities. And I think that's the appropriate thing in our relationship with the national governments. Because if your house is on fire, and your national government may not send in a fire truck right away, you grab a bucket. And that's what we're doing in our states, big time. And I'm proud to join this group of leaders by making these commitments today. In our state, we've been doing a whole bunch. I just signed an executive order to make sure we have all electrical fleet in my state by 2035. Joining some great work of Kate Brown and my fellow governors here. We just passed what is arguably the best cap and invest bill with the greatest environmental justice in the United States. Governor Newsom, or maybe Governor Pritzker, will argue with us about that. But that's part of our goal here, because we want to inspire each other to greater glory. We are competitors as well as folks who believe in collegiality. But we're going to help each other as well, as we have in the Pacific Coast Collaborative. So I want to thank the 68 people who are standing up as supranational action-oriented leaders. And whatever comes out of COP, let people know you're going to have action from our states. You're going to have action from our governors. We will not wait for national governments. We will act because our kids and our economies depend on it. Congratulations. And now I get to introduce our host, First Minister Sturgeon of Scotland. And this is the first time I've been in her beautiful home. And I want to tell you, First Minister, I'm really impressed by the biodiversity work that you were doing in such a beautiful country. We know it's gorgeous. I look forward to seeing the Isle of Skye here in a couple days. I want you to know you're also very adventuresome. You're adventuresome in this effort against climate. And this morning at breakfast, at the food line, it said, haggis, try it. And I did, and I'm hooked. I'm a haggis fan now. So please come up and join us. Thank you, First Minister Sturgeon.
Thank you very much indeed, Governor Inslee. It's a real pleasure and privilege to be joined here today by you, by your wife and colleagues. I'm delighted that you're visiting Scotland for the first time. I'm even more delighted that you're heading to the beautiful Isle of Skye in a couple of days. I can guarantee that you will have a wonderful time there in the most beautiful scenery that you will find anywhere in the world. I can't guarantee the sun will shine, but whatever the weather, it will be atmospheric, but please enjoy and eat plenty of haggis. Those of you here who joined me in the beautiful surroundings of Stirling Castle last night were treated to vegetarian haggis, which is also wonderful. But the real thing really must be tried, and hopefully nobody told you what the ingredients of haggis are before they encouraged you to try it. But please enjoy everything that Scotland has to offer. Let me repeat the welcome I gave last night and again this morning to all of the governors, the premiers, the ministers from the states, the cities, the regions, devolved governments that make up this Under 2 coalition. I'm very privileged right now to be the European co-chair of an organisation, General Assembly of which has been meeting this morning, that is increasingly powerful and increasingly influential. I thoroughly endorse your rebranding of the coalition as supranational. I think we must definitely make that description stick. But I think it's worth reflecting on the journey the Under 2 coalition has taken. It established itself a mere 6 years ago, and yet today it stands as a partnership of 260 members representing almost 2 billion people across the world, and crucially, and this is a crucial and vital statistic that should give us confidence in our ability to influence others, we represent 50% of the global economy. And the coalition is based on a simple but very powerful understanding. Firstly, that it is our cities, regions, states, devolved nations that very often are those closest to the impacts and the consequences of climate change. But secondly, that so many of the actions that all of us need to take to tackle climate change, whether that is passing legislation, issuing executive orders. I've always wished that as First Minister I had the ability to just issue executive orders. I would very much enjoy doing that. Whether it is transforming infrastructure or investing in solutions, so many of these actions fall to governments like ours to take. And as we face up to that, there's no doubt at all that we really benefit from working with each other and learning from each other. And if we show leadership and earn the credibility that comes from delivering the actions that will lead to the delivery of the bold targets we set, then we have such a huge potential to influence the actions of larger national governments. So this organisation is powerful. It has many achievements already to its name, and it is, of course, now raising the scale of its ambitions. Rightly so, given the urgency of the climate emergency that we are living through right now. The new Memorandum of Understanding, which I had the privilege of signing just this morning, is a prime example of that increased level of ambition. That Memorandum of Understanding is committing all of the signatories to reach net zero emissions by 2050 at the latest, and where possible to do that earlier. In Scotland, we're committed to reaching net zero by 2045, because as a developed nation with the natural assets that we have, not least our wonderful nature, allowing us to restore peatlands, plant more trees, we can get there quicker than some other countries can, and if we can, we should. The Memorandum of Understanding encapsulates the ambition all of us need to show if we're going to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees, which of course is not something that should be seen any longer as optional. It must be seen as necessary and a driving imperative for all of us. But the other example and illustration of that increased level of ambition is, of course, the Further, Faster Together document that we are launching today. A number of governments, again, as the Governor has said, representing a significant portion of the world's economy, coming together to highlight the actions that we are taking to deliver on the bold targets that we have set. Covers 32 different policy actions, areas like decarbonising energy, reducing waste, supporting climate justice. Now, here's the important point, and it's one that Governor Inslee has already made. Not all of us are doing all of the things in this document, but that is the point, because part of what we are seeking to do is challenge ourselves and challenge each other to go further and faster. Because as well as collaborators, and that partnership is important, it is also healthy that we are competitors, that we are engaging ourselves in a healthy competition and in a race to the top as we together but individually seek to tackle climate change with the urgency that is required. So I am really delighted to be part of all of this. I am absolutely thrilled to have you all here in my home city of Glasgow, where I can tell you the sun always shines just as it is doing today. Those of you who've been here for a few days will know that is not true, but I like to pretend that it is. This is, in my view, a real turning point in the history of the world. It must be a turning point in the history of the world, and there are few better places in the world for us to approach that turning point. This city led the world, or helped lead the world into the industrial age. It now is at the heart of our efforts to start leading the world firmly into the net zero age. So let's come together, let's work together, let's encourage each other to go further, faster together, so that our supranational governments can lead the globe in facing up to the challenges of climate change and protecting this planet for those who come after us. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, First Minister Sturgeon, and thank you, Governor Inslee, for those really stirring and inspiring remarks as we kick off this session. So we're going to begin our tour today, speaking with leaders from Europe, from South America, and from Asia. So it's my absolute pleasure to welcome up to the panel Acting Governor Koo of Jeju Province in Korea, Arantxa Tapia, Minister of Economic Development, Sustainability and Environment for the Basque Country in Spain, and Governor Paulo Camara from Pernambuco in Brazil. Welcome to you all. So you have all committed, as we mentioned, to many of the actions laid out, and we want to give a taste today of the diversity of actions that have actually taken place around the world. So I'd love to hear from each of you on one particular action that you've committed to that you believe is most important for tackling the climate crisis in your region. And we will start with Acting Governor Koo.
Thank you for an insightful question. First of all, thank you for organizing the event, Governor Jay Inslee. And I also thank Her Excellency Nicola Sturgeon and Special Envoy John Kerry, as well as fellow governors and ministers for this wonderful opportunity. To answer your question, Libby, our commitment in the energy and the mobility sectors are the most important for tackling the climate crisis in Jeju. As such, we have been pursuing the Carbon-Free Island 2030 agenda. This is the 10th year, and in those 10 years, Jeju became Korea's #1 in renewable generation and electric vehicle. Estimates from Jeju Research Institute indicate that our green technologies can transform Jeju into only 300 island, meeting 100% of our own demand from clean energy and exporting twice as much to other regions. To fulfill this ambition, scaling up to the next level is essential. This is why our alliance between supranationals becomes very important. Earlier this May, Governor Jay Inslee told my predecessor, former Governor Won Hee-ryong, what you are doing in reducing carbon emissions in Jeju is saving the glaciers in Mount Reindeer. Likewise, Jeju believes that our Halla Mountain is being saved by the efforts of the governors, mayors, and the premiers in this global coalition. And it is Jeju's wish to preserve the glaciers in the mountains of not only Halla and Rainier, but across the world through this coalition. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Governor Koo. And now to Minister Tapia, the same question, the one action that you feel is most important in your region.
Thank you very much for inviting me to be here in the name of the Basque government. And I have to say that from our government, being pioneers in establishing long-term climate change strategy, it is important, first of all, to plan and to establish all the policy regulatory framework in order to have a framework which will be sure for our industries, for all the activities that have to be developed in the country. And together with the planning, we have to act at the same time. So from the government point of view, we have established our energy transition and climate change plan for 2024 with more than 15 flagship initiatives. And we aim to reduce the greenhouse gases by 30% in 2024. And we have a target of 20% of renewable energies produced in the Basque Country, together with actions to advance in achieving a resilient territory through projects to adapt to climate change that is already with us. And together with that, we are acting on some special activities. First of all, working on energy efficiency on all public buildings, but also on housing, because we have one of the oldest housing system in the European Union. Second, trying to establish new renewable energies in all the country, coming from wind farms to photovoltaic systems, big projects, but also smaller projects with citizen cooperatives, in order to make the citizens who are the end users being the producers at the same time, and working with our industry in order to achieve the net zero objective, because we have a heavy industry that is almost producing the 50%, almost 50% of all the greenhouse gases in the Basque Country. So involving all this industry in the net zero achievement will be something interesting for us. So we are working in several areas. Energy, of course, having the industry involved with us, and we need citizens and we need society together with us with smaller actions, but everyday actions at their homes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Tapia. And now to the Governor of Pernambuco.
Good afternoon. Gostaria de iniciar cumprimentando os representantes do Climate Group e reconhecer o empenho de todos para realizar esse evento e continuar apoiando cidades e estados no mundo inteiro em favor da agenda climática.
I would like to begin by greeting the representatives of the Climate Group and recognize everyone's effort to hold this event and continue to support cities and states around the world on the climate agenda.
Tenho muito orgulho de governar Pernambuco, no estado do Nordeste brasileiro, há 7 anos, e a despeito de toda a falta de comprometimento do governo federal brasileiro com a sustentabilidade e a preservação da natureza, temos avançado nesses setores em todo o estado.
I am very proud to govern Pernambuco in the northeast of Brazil for 7 years, and despite all the lack of commitment of the Brazilian federal government to the sustainability and preservation of nature, we have advanced in this sector in our state.
A região nordeste do Brasil tem demonstrado que é possível aliar desenvolvimento com sustentabilidade. 88% da energia eólica e 67% da energia solar da matriz brasileira são produzidas no Nordeste. Também estamos caminhando para ser um hub regional de produção de hidrogênio verde. Temos condições de superar os desafios sociais, sendo aliados do meio ambiente, e esse compromisso é de todos os governadores da região.
The northeast region of Brazil has shown that it's possible to combine development with sustainability. 88% of wind energy and 67% of solar energy in the Brazilian matrix are produced in the northeast. We are also moving towards being a regional hub of green hydrogen production. We are able to overcome social challenges by being allies of the environment, and this commitment is from all the governors of the region.
Em Pernambuco, iniciamos nosso plano estadual de descarbonização, mas para progredirmos no debate da sustentabilidade, precisamos de planejamento, financiamento e inovação.
In Pernambuco, we have started our state decarbonization plan, but to progress in the sustainability debate, we need planning, financing, and innovation.
Temos atuado nessas 3 frentes para atingirmos nosso objetivo e alcançar a neutralidade do carbono em 2050.
We have worked on these 3 fronts to achieve our goal of achieving carbon neutrality in 2050.
Mas não viemos aqui apenas para reafirmar promessas, nem para apontar as contradições daqueles que não respeitam a natureza. Estamos fazendo a nossa parte e, por isso, anuncio hoje o maior aporte de recursos para a agenda de sustentabilidade em Pernambuco.
But we didn't come here just to reaffirm promises, nor to point out the contradictions of those who don't respect nature. We are doing our part, and therefore today I announce the largest contribution of financial resource to the sustainability agenda in Pernambuco.
Vamos investir 75 milhões de reais no reflorestamento na nossa principal área da Mata Atlântica, a APA Aldeia Beberibe, na recuperação de 1.000 nascentes de rios em 50 municípios e no tratamento de resíduos sólidos, 43 cidades que não contam com aterros sanitários.
We will invest 75 millions of reais in the reforestation of our main Atlantic forest area. They are called APA Aldeia Beberibe, for the recovery of 1,000 river springs in 50 municipalities and in the treatment of solid waste in 43 cities that not have landfills.
São medidas concretas, com início imediato, com foco em resgatar não só a qualidade do ar, da água, da flora, da fauna, mas sobretudo resgatar uma vida melhor para as pessoas. Agradeço mais uma vez o apoio e a atenção de todos. Muito obrigado.
These are concrete measures with an immediate beginning, with a focus on rescuing not only the quality of air, water, flora and fauna, but above all, rescuing a better life for people. I thank you once again for supporting and attention of all. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all our speakers. Please join me in giving them a thank you round of applause. Everyone. So the tour continues, and we have a number of people actually in the room who've also made these commitments. I can see the Minister from Quebec, I can see the Mayor of Halifax, Commissioner from New York. So it's great to see that this community is bigger than even the speakers on stage. We're now going to go to some of the speakers that weren't able to be here in Glasgow with us, with a couple of short videos to tell a story from South Africa and from Australia. Can we have the videos, please? Okay, they haven't quite woken up in Australia, maybe. Actually, I think they're further ahead than us. So we're going to move on our tour to North America, and we are really delighted to have so many governors from the US here with us. I think having so many people at this time, your presence is a signal in itself, and the commitments and the work that you're doing that comes with it is the icing on the cake, as it were. So it's my pleasure now to introduce the Minister for Environment and Climate Change of British Columbia, the Governor J.P. Pritzker of Illinois in the US, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham of New Mexico, Governor Kate Brown of Oregon, and Governor David Ige of Hawaii. Please come up, and Minister Heyman, I will give you the podium.
I am, yes. Thank you very much. It gives me a lot of pleasure and honor to join these great leaders here. I'm from British Columbia, which is the province in Canada just to the north of Governor Inslee's state of Washington. This is, of course, a key moment for the world, and British Columbia is very proud to increase our ambition and our work with others to do the same. I think it's important to acknowledge the significance, as Governor Inslee has, of all of the signatories and what we all represent to the agreements that we're making during this period of time this week. It's critical that we avoid the worst impacts of the potential deepening climate crisis and build a better future, especially for young people and especially for their children and grandchildren. The further, faster, together commitments are ambitious. Just before arriving here in Glasgow, my government updated our climate action plan called Clean BC. We accelerated and expanded our measures. We accelerated the ones that were working and we added new ones. And there is significant alignment with the pledges that are being made today. We're increasing, for instance, our zero-emission vehicle law, the first law in the world, I believe, to mandate specific targets for new car sales, and we're expanding that to 90% by 2030 and 100% zero-emission vehicles by 2035. And we already have 12%, over 12% of new car sales in British Columbia zero-emission today, which is 4 years ahead of our initial target. In addition to that, we're mandating that all new buildings will be zero carbon by 2030, along with replacement and new space and water heating. We're targeting a 75% methane reduction from oil and gas by 2030 and the near total elimination of all industrial methane emissions by 2035. We're putting a cap on oil and gas utilities with reductions between now and 2030, and then we'll move on from there. We have many, many more measures in the roadmap to 2030, including supporting local government initiatives to reduce their own emissions, to build resilient infrastructure, and to have cleaner energy in buildings. Underlying our plan are 4 principles. One of them is affordability for everyone. We can't leave anyone behind. Another one is equity. We have a significant number of Indigenous nations in British Columbia, and an important principle is reconciliation with those nations and including them and their traditional knowledge as part of our adaptation to climate and our mitigation efforts. And of course, we want to build a diversified and strong economy with new opportunities for everyone. So we're all in with our partners today, and we want to hear from others what the plans are. So let me ask governors for your perspectives. The question that we're here to answer today is, you have all shown tremendous leadership in the United States in the face of 4 years of gridlock and inaction, which thankfully have passed. You're now stepping up. You're now stepping up to lead the change. Could you each tell me about the new climate actions and commitments that you're announcing today, and what, in your opinion, it's going to take to get to zero emissions? And let's start with Governor Kate Brown of Oregon.
Thank you so much, and I'm totally honored to be here with my colleagues today. I am closing out my time as governor, and so my focus is on eliminating the measures we've already implemented and making sure that the next governor is set up for success. But Oregon continues to lead the way because we believe that we can both tackle climate change and grow our economy at the same time. And since I've become governor, we have been challenged by a number of climate change events. In the last year alone, we had historic wildfires losing over 4,000 homes. We had an unprecedented ice storm event in February where over 1 million Oregonians lost power. And most recently, we had a heat dome event where unfortunately we lost over 90 Oregonians. So we must move quickly, and we must move very efficiently. I signed legislation in 2016 that led the nation. We were the first state in the country to move away from coal-generated electricity. And most recently, thank you, There we go. Most recently, I signed a bill that is one of the most aggressive clean energy standards in the country. Will move to 100% clean, green energy by 2040. And I have signed an executive order, the joy of having the ability to take executive authority, that will cap carbon emissions in my state, that will move our buildings to cleaner energy, and will ensure that we implement our EV transition plan very, very quickly. But the work I am most proud of as Oregon's governor is the work we are doing to focus on our historically underserved communities of color, low-income communities, and rural communities. Two policies that we have implemented to support these communities include the work to ensure that these families have access to EV rebates. I think we're one of the first states in the country to provide EV rebates not only for new EVs, but for used EVs as well, up to $7,500. It's significant. And we are also ensuring that our Public Utilities Commission can limit the impact as we transition to new, cleaner energy on low and moderate income families. But as we all know, the best way out of poverty is making sure there's a good paying job. And so we are also focusing our efforts on job training in the new, clean, green energy fields. And that includes making sure that programs like the one we have at the Hood River Community College, which is the heart of wind country in Oregon, can provide access to wind turbine training for students in the region. So it's critically important that we work with communities, provide education and training from the ground up that meets the needs of these communities and creates good paying, sustainable jobs in the entire region. We have, I believe, not only a moral imperative, but an economic imperative to do this work. And future generations will judge us not on the fact of climate change, but what we do to tackle it. The time is absolutely now. We must move quickly. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you very much, Governor Brown. And next we'll hear from Governor David Ige of Hawaii.
Turn on your mic.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really exciting to be here in Glasgow amongst friends to really be part of this historic announcement. You know, island communities see the impact of climate change more intensely and actively, from rain bomb events to drought to wildfire and coral bleaching. Islands feel the impact. We know that net zero is not good enough. In 2018, Hawaii committed to a net negative goal because we want to capture more carbon than we release in greenhouse gases. We do know that we need to invest in our nature-bound resources to begin to protect our native forests, to restore 100 million trees by 2030. Hawaii is on track to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030. We are on track to reduce electricity, transportation, and other greenhouse gas emitters. And I think most importantly, we are committed to investing in our natural resources to capture carbon. We know that net zero is not good enough. We're committed to net negative. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. And next is Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Heyman, and thank you especially for your leadership on climate. Thank you. I'll start over. Thank you to Minister Heyman for your leadership, and especially on climate, and also for inviting us here today. And I want to respond to something that Governor Inslee said earlier about competition and collaboration. We're, of course, a collaboration-oriented state, but we're also the largest economy represented from the United States in the state of Illinois, the greatest state in the United States, I might add, with a great global city, the city of Chicago, within it. I'm very honored to be here with a terrific supranational delegation of U.S. states at COP26, and we are, in many ways, as states, the innovators for climate action, and the leadership represented here, just among the folks that are sitting to my right and here in the audience, is a tremendous example of what I think the United States can and does offer to the world in terms of our reaction to the challenges ahead. We can't outrun or hide from climate change. The consequences of our actions are here with us now, and they're all around us. Unprecedented wildfires in California, in Oregon, in western states in the United States, rapidly rising sea levels in Hawaii, crippling drought in New Mexico. And to anyone who thinks that Illinois in the center of the country is safe from these impacts, well, think again, because in the last 2.5 years since I've been governor, alone we've had a polar vortex that has killed people in our state, the lowest temperatures for quite some time. Devastating floods that were thought to be 100-year floods that are now happening every couple of years. Microbursts that destroy buildings, small businesses, houses, record lake levels. Lake Michigan in Chicago, we're very concerned about the impact of the rising lake levels on our great city. Extreme heat in our state, and emergency declarations that I have had to put forward in 1/3 of Illinois' counties. We're a 50,000 square mile state. And to think of 1/3 of our state being under emergency essentially throughout my governorship is amazing. So there's no time to lose. But within the crisis, I believe, lies opportunity. We can do right by the workers and the communities whose lives and livelihoods have been tied up in the dirty energy economy. And we can do right by environmental justice communities who have borne the brunt of the Industrial Revolution's worst consequences. Remember, we are a Rust Belt, old line industrial state. At least that's how people think of us. And yet we believe that we can do right by this planet that we are part of, and really making revolutionary change in our state. These ambitions are very lofty, I know, but they are necessary. In the heart of the Midwest, I believe, lies a roadmap for this moment for almost anybody to follow. It's why Illinois' action lately has been so important. I think we send a signal to many others about how you can come from behind and become a leader in taking action to fight climate change. We passed a nation-leading climate action plan just less than 2 months ago in my state, putting into effect the most aggressive clean energy targets in the Midwest. We phased out coal and natural gas by 2045. We made critical investments in communities that have been disproportionately impacted and have suffered from climate change. We've doubled our investment in renewable energy. We've pledged to put 1 million EVs on the road by 2030, and we support the creation of thousands of clean energy jobs and protect and advance the interests of Illinoisans by anchoring it all in the values, and this is very important, was mentioned by Governor Brown just a moment ago, anchored all in equity, hugely important, and ethics, and in consumer protections. It's comprehensive, our climate action plan, because we have to tackle this from every angle. It also puts Illinois on track to meet the commitments that we're here to announce, like preparing our action plan in line with the Paris Agreement. The goal of keeping our temperature rise to 1.5 Celsius, and targeting 100% zero carbon electricity by 2045, empowering disadvantaged communities throughout Illinois, and ensuring the new clean energy economy reflects the diversity of our state. And that is what we aim to do, because as I said, there really is no time to lose. Now is the time for action, and coming from the center of the country, from the Midwest, we think it's an important signal about where America is going. So thank you, and I'm very proud to be with you today, and turn it back over to the minister.
Thank you, Governor. And for the final words, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham from New Mexico.
Well, thank you, Minister, and good afternoon, everyone. I, too, just like all of my colleagues, are incredibly proud to be part of the Under 2 Coalition and to join as many efforts that are about coalescing around good leadership and action-oriented efforts at dealing with the climate crisis. And frankly, it was just less than 4 years ago, I met with Governor Inslee in the capital of New Mexico, Santa Fe, at a community college's Innovation and Technology Center. And here we are, not too much longer, Governor, and I get to participate with you and my colleagues at another technology and innovation center, because the innovation that's occurring at both the state and national levels and in the private sector are providing brand new opportunities to meet, beat, and excel our efforts against the effects of climate change. And in New Mexico, you're going to hear much of the same. We've done, it really is a race to the top. We look at things that work in other states, and then we don't have to make the same policy arguments to our constituents and other policymakers. We can show you unequivocally that they're working, adopt them, and we don't have to start at ground zero, if you will. That is making a huge difference. So here are a couple of concrete examples. In 2019, right after I took office, we signed a historic piece of legislation that's not only the roadmap into clean energy and net zero, but really addressed a consequential aspect of New Mexico's issues that are a bit different from everyone else's represented, at least here today. We are the second largest oil and gas producer in the United States. And that is an incredible juxtaposition, because what happens, of course, is when people debate climate change and what we ought to be doing about it with the current state of the economy, New Mexico stalls out. So we didn't do that. In 2019, we put into statute an energy transition law that said we will not stall out. And in fact, we will get to decarbonizing our utility sector by 2045. And just as Governor Pritzker stated, and frankly, all the governors, Ige and Brown, we're going to beat that by at least 5 years and are on target to frankly do even better in that utility sector. And we also, in that roadmap, we're really clear about what we would do for environmental justice. So the communities that we are decarbonizing and removing coal-fired power plants, the kind of equity investments are threefold. One, right to the sovereign nations that are in those affected counties or communities. Two, right to the workers. That means that there's money in their hands for mortgages, for children, for food, for raising their families as you engage in a brand new economic opportunity. And then right to the counties or local governments that are affected, so that they're all working in concert to figure out those economies. And then we invested in a center of excellence at a university in these particular counties so that we're teaching folks about renewable energy and new jobs. Two, We then embarked on a really robust regulatory environment. So I think that we have the leading methane emissions rule in the country. That's 98% reduction in methane emissions by 2026. It really is the precursor now for the Biden administration's announcement about methane. And to quote Gina McCarthy, states, and in this case, on this one issue, New Mexico, each of us have an issue, or 2, or 5, or 20, just like that, where the federal government says, look, you did it. You're doing the monitoring and you're doing the accountability, because otherwise these rules don't have any impact unless we know what's really going on. New Mexico showed that you can actually do that in this industry that's heavily represented there. And I think we have the only environment department today, but that's going to change, that in real time is doing GPS and infrared mapping, so you know where methane leaks are, what we're doing about it, and how quickly we got it resolved. We're about to promulgate our ozone rule, so you're going to see us continue to deal with greenhouse gas emissions and making sure that air pollution, air quality are a cornerstone. And most recently, I announced that we will codify into law a net zero for the entire state, so that we're doing everything. That's building, that's EV cars, that's clean fuel standards. Frankly, it's the rest of it, and New Mexico is looking at decarbonizing transportation by a transition, learning from what we did in the utility sector. We're looking at hydrogen and focusing on carbon intensity, so that you really are, it's a race to the top in that transition for transportation. You'll see us do the same. In agriculture, you'll see us do the same in our 30 by 30 plan for what the state can do to support conservation and do that with individuals, and building codes. So we're all doing as much as we can in this moment, with an eye for the future about doubling down or tripling or more every single day that we have an opportunity to lead by example, to learn from each other, and to make a collective difference so that the world sees global leadership in action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governors. Applause for everyone. I think we've heard lots of ambitious action and a great focus on equity, and I now want to go back and up the ambition in British Columbia. Thank you, everyone.
Wow. Competition, collaboration. I feel like we're stepping into a new world together. We're continuing our tour with a couple of final remarks from very esteemed leaders in the Asia Pacific, and then I think we might have the video at the end. I think we've got it to work, so we'll go to South Africa and Australia to finish. So it is I'm going to take this off. It is my great pleasure to introduce even more energy into this session from the Minister of Maharashtra in India to deliver a few remarks. Welcome, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor Inslee, for having us over here. Congratulations to my fellow Environment Minister, Minister Heyman, for having the award with us for the climate group last night. Listening to all of you, obviously, it is really inspirational to see what we're doing around the world, and as subnational governments or supranational governments, however we call it, for climate change mitigation, adaptation, and the things that we're doing for ourselves. Obviously, I had a ministerial script to speak about, but I'm going to ditch that and just stick to the notes that I've jotted down here while listening to all of you. Now, you may be wondering why I'm here from the state of Maharashtra all the way, and where my story really begins. I'm only 31 years old. I'm a minister for tourism, protocol, and environment from the state of Maharashtra. In terms of my story, obviously, in the year 2004, 2005, probably all of you must have watched this movie called The Day After Tomorrow. And it was about climate change. It spoke about climate change issues around the world. And back then, when I was watching the movie Day After Tomorrow, I thought this truly is about the day after tomorrow, which probably meant 100 years later, 150 years later, not something for me to really face as the current generation or for generations after us. But when I started working in a political party, in politics, in my home state about 10 years ago, I started moving around the state of Maharashtra, helping people who were facing drought. In the years 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, we faced extreme droughts across the state in probably some of the largest areas in our state. Rural economies, urban economies, cities, villages, farmers, truckers, women, children, schools, colleges, everyone faced issues with drought and obviously a huge amount of water scarcity. So as any politician does, we went to villages, we went with tankers of water and dropped water in the wells out there, started interacting with people. And what I realized really is people had phone networks, people had social media on their phone but did not have water to drink. Over the last 5 years, things have changed, and in the same places today, we face floods, we face flash floods, we face hailstorms, we face unseasonal rainfall. And what we started realizing is these are not weather anomalies. These are not erratic weather patterns. There was a pattern to this, and that is what we're realizing, that the day after tomorrow isn't really day after tomorrow, it's today, it's not even tomorrow. And that's why we've started working in terms of climate change mitigation and adaptation back home in our state. A simple example again would be the city of Mumbai. How many of you have been to Mumbai? Couple of you have been to Mumbai, and you know how huge a metropolis it is. Now, it is also the finance and financial capital of our country, India. As Maharashtra, we're the industrial powerhouse of India. Now, when we look at Mumbai in the last 3 years, we faced rainfall exceeding 3,000 millimeters every year for the past 3 years. Now, any city which would have a rainfall of more than 250 mm per hour is going to collapse. Of course, we've got mitigation measures, we've got resilience measures, we've got percolation tanks, we've got rainwater holding tanks, we've got pumping stations, but we are facing emergencies in terms of climate change. When we got elected to serve Maharashtra as the government of Maharashtra in 2019, December, I got sworn in as the Minister of Environment, and we've started working around with Maharashtra and leading the way for climate change action in India. To compare Maharashtra and give you a perspective on what Maharashtra as a state is, like I said, we are the industrial powerhouse of India. We're the financial capital of India. We have almost 125 million people in our state. And the 43 cities that we have committed Race to Zero to have a floating population of almost 65 to 67 million people in these cities. Now, this state is sort of wanting to lead the way in India for climate change. Thankfully, the Chief Minister is a passionate wildlife enthusiast. He's a passionate conservationist, Mr. Uddhav Thackeray. And he's given us the ability to dream of a better future, for a greener future. We've started with a movement called Maji Vasundhara. Now, Maji Vasundhara really means my planet. And we're focusing on the traditional 5 elements of nature. We've got air, water, wind, fire, and ether, or space, or what we as government call it, awareness. And we've been working with our own government, with looking inside, looking inwards, with our revenue collectors, district collectors, magistrates, municipal commissioners, to see what we can do for a better planet. But going beyond that, I'm going to lead some conversation in terms of what we are doing as the government of Maharashtra in all the aspects listed out here for further, faster, and together. In terms of energy, of course, we are moving towards looking at every new megawatt of electricity coming from clean and green energy, moving away from conventional energy, moving away from thermal or coal energy. And that is what we're looking at. So if I could give you an example, just recently, we have solarized the highway. We've put out the tender documents, but we'll be generating 250 megawatts of solar energy from the highway we're creating from Mumbai to Nagpur. It may be a coincidence that I've been pushing for it, but my name Aditya also means the sun. And for us in India, we've been worshipping the sun god as the seed of the universe, the reason for all of us to be here. And in most of our texts of rituals and ancient Vedic texts, the sun god holds a primary position. For us as Maharashtra, we're looking at wind energy, we're looking at floating solar, we're looking at multiple sources that could clearly, lead us into a just energy transition. Moving further, built environment. We've just updated our development control rules for the city of Mumbai and for the rest of Maharashtra. We're looking at in-house ways of generating solar energy. If not in-house, how do we pull it from the grid? How do we ensure that no grey water, black water, or sewage water really goes down to our seas without being treated? We're looking at segregation of waste within our building compounds, within our housing societies, within small bungalows or chawls or slum areas. But how do we create waste segregation within our built-up environment? We're looking at more charging stations. At least 30% of all parking slots would have charging stations for EVs connected to renewable energy sources in our built-up environments. We're looking at more gardens. We're looking at more percolation spots for rainwater that is collapsing onto us every single monsoon. Moving further into clean transportation, the city of Mumbai currently has just released a tender document for procuring 2,100 clean fuel, completely electric buses that are emission-free and sound-free. By 2023, the Mumbai city's public transport system would have 50% of its fleet as electric, and by 2027, 100% of Mumbai's public transport system would be fully electric. Looking at that example, many other cities of all 43 cities that we have where we have public transport are looking at going completely electric. But when we say electric mobility and clean transition, we're connecting it to our clean grids and not to any conventional sources of power. In terms of nature-based solutions, we strongly believe that all the solutions for our survival on this planet come from nature. We're not different from nature. We're a part of nature. We've always believed that we are part of nature. In the past few months, be it fighting with COVID or other policy measures, what we have tried to achieve is some crucial elements of protecting nature. Be it in the past 11 months of having more than 11,560 hectares of mangroves protected as reserve forests. And these could have gone down into creating other things which we term as development, but we're looking at sustainable development. We've converted 10 areas of green zones into conservation reserves. 2 sanctuaries, 1 marine sanctuary, a flamingo sanctuary, and in the city of Mumbai, we've protected an area of 808 acres as a reserve forest. Now, that when we say we're looking at biodiversity, we're looking at a thriving forest, we're looking at places where we have leopards, tigers, elephants, the rusty spotted cat, flora and fauna of not just wild and big cats, but every small animal, right from a spider to species that we have not even heard about, be it snakes, be it pythons, be it everything. Moving further in terms of environment justice, we're looking at a larger capacity of hearing those elements of our nature that we could have never heard of. Yes, I'm just going to move on to, when we're looking at environment justice, it could be saving 1 banyan tree coming in the middle of the highway to almost everything. Intergovernmental cooperation and planning, we have institutionalized our areas and created a climate change council for our state. And finally, waste and agriculture. Now, just in 2 seconds, waste, I'll give you a small story. In the year 2017, Mumbai generated waste almost equivalent to 10,000 metric tons a day. Today, with segregation measures, with everyone coming together, we're at 6,000 metric tons a day, and we're going further to reduce waste collection and going to the dumping grounds. And for agriculture, we've got almost 5,000 villages protected with the World Bank's support for climate resilient agriculture. The point really being, we're here to work further, faster, and together with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Thackeray, for that energy that you bring to this event. And to close, it is my absolute pleasure to invite our co-chair for the Asia Pacific for the Under 2 Coalition, Governor Yang of Chungnam Province in Korea.
예, 여러분 대단히 반갑습니다. 충청남도 도지사이자 원노트 연합 아시아 태평지역 공동의장 양성입니다. 이렇게 만나뵈어 대단히 반갑다는 말씀을 드리고 오늘 행사 주재진 워시턴 주지사님과 관계 여러분께 진심으로 존경과 감사 인사드립니다.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm very glad to have you here all, and it's very honored to meet you. Thank you. I'm very honored to have this opportunity to say hello to everyone and then make it clear that we are here all together for the same motivation. And especially my thanks goes to the Governor of the Washington State, Jay Inslee. Thank you for the invitation. And then I really appreciate all the effort together by the climate group. Thank you.
제가 4번의 국회의원을 하다가 도지사에 출마했는데 도지사 출마할 때 공약이 제1호 공약이 푸른 하늘 맑은 공기 프로젝트였습니다. 이런 제1호 공약을 지키기 위해서 충청도의 노력과 여러 성과에 대해서 말씀 올리겠습니다.
I used to serve as a parliament member like for consecutive terms, and then since I took the office as a governor in the year of 2018, the first campaign pledge which I made was the making a cleaner and clean energy, and then making a clean sky for the general public.
제가 취임할 때 대한민국 화력발전소가 60기가 가동 중이었는데 그중에서 절반인 30기가 충청남도에서 가동 중이었고 온실가스 배출량 한 7억 2천만 톤 중에서 충청은 1억 6천만 톤, 22% 정도가 충청남도에 배출되는 상황이었습니다.
Yes, when I took the office as a governor for the first time, I had seen a lot of the downturns of our energy transition, because we used to have the majority of the power units of the Republic of Korea located in Chungcheongnam-do. Like 30 out of the 60 units of the thermal power stations was in our province, like in Chungcheongnam-do. And then we are the main producer of the air pollution, which is the 120 billion tons of the metric tons of the air pollution we produce, like in Chungcheongnam-do that time.
그래서 충청남도는 연한이 30년 넘는 화력발전 조기 폐쇄를 주장했고 성능 개선 작업을 빌미로 한 수명 연장을 반대하면서 조기 폐쇄를 주장했는데 자연스럽게 중앙정부가 화력발전 조기 폐쇄하면서 에너지 수급 계획을 변경해서 2기 화력발전 조기 폐쇄였고 나머지 12기도 32년까지 조기 폐쇄로 결정되었다는 성과가 있었습니다.
So our ministry insisted for those thermal power units, which is more than 30 years old, had to be re-extended its expiry date another 5 or 10 years, but with a strong against opposition by our government, we made it to make a close decommissioning of the power thermal unit by the year of 2030, earlier than expected. And we already made the close down of the 2 units of Boryong power thermal stations, 1 and 2 units, earlier than expected. So we made the persuasion to the central government to put it into the our annual base energy planning to have this closure of the units earlier than expected without making enhancement.
물론 화력발전소의 폐쇄 권한은 중앙정부에 있습니다만 우리 충청남도는 이렇게 대한민국 화력발전소 전체가 절반이 충청남도에 있으니만큼 중앙정부에 강력히 촉구해서 2040년까지는 충청남도에 있는 화력발전소 조기 폐쇄하라 이런 주장을 하고 여러분과 함께 그 노력을 위해서 가열차게 노력하겠습니다.
So since it is the authority by the state to put down or the decommission of those thermal power units, but as a local government, we will do what we can do to make it the earlier decommissioning of the power units as early as possible, let's say 2030.
태양광이라든가 풍력, 수소연료 전지발전소 등 2040년까지 최소한 재생에너지 비율을 40% 이상 올릴 수 있도록 노력하겠습니다.
Meanwhile, we will put the effort forward to make it the renewable energy capacity upgraded to 40% using the solar power and then the offshore wind power generation.
또한 충청남도는 이렇게 에너지가 전환되면서 고용 감소라든지 지역적인 위축에 대비해서 이미 정의로운 전환 기금을 마련하고 그 방법에 대해서 대처하고 있습니다.
Also, in order to do the just energy transition, we created a fund for those people underprivileged, so we can revitalize the local economy with jobs and then the proper training for the jobs.
충청남도는 대한민국에서 이런 기후 변화에 대해서 선도적으로 주도한다는 자부심을 갖고 또 언더투 연합의 아시아 태평양 공동 의장도로서 우리가 더 빠르게 그리고 더 강하게 탄소중을 실천할 수 있도록 모든 노력을 여러분과 함께 기울이겠습니다.
As the co-chair of the Asia Pacific, today I made an announcement here by today to all of you attending. As a front runner of this energy transition, we will do what we can do to make it further, faster, and together. Thank you very much.
네, 감사합니다.
Wow, I think we need some lunch after all that. Thank you so much, Governor. Thank you to all the governors and ministers for joining us, and all the mayors, governor and ministers who have joined in this commitment, who we haven't even heard from today. We will be having a group photo just outside for everyone that's made the commitment, and downstairs we're also got the climate champions with us at the lunch. Photos here? Okay, the photo is here, not outside. Thank you, everybody.